I'd like to begin our sessions by introducing Mr. Mogens Smed. Considered the leading voice of prefab interior construction in North America, Mogens Smed has published industry standards even further by adding mass customization to the mix with his newest company, DIRTT. DIRTT was created in 2005 and stands for Doing It Right This Time. The hybrid company uses technology to bridge construction and manufacturing, and its clients range from small startups to Fortune 500 corporations, healthcare facilities, and large government institutions. With cabinet making in his family's history, Smed first launched his own modular furniture company and construction firm, Smed Manufacturing, in the 1970s. The Calgary-based business became Smed International in the mid-90s, and as publicly traded company. By introducing modular interior construction to commercial office spaces across North America, Smed grew the company into a $300 million enterprise, which was sold to Hayworth Inc. in 2000. DIRTT's backbone is its proprietary software platform called ICE. This technology uses the real-time, interactive, and graphical experience of a video game to market, price, engineer, and manufacture the walls, power, millwork, and floor innovation curve, and delivers the message of making environmental sustainability a profitable business strategy for DIRTT and its clients. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mogens Smed.
Thank you very much. Just a little elaboration on this DIRTT Doing It Right This Time. It came as a result of not so much of the company that we have right now, but just an idea that came after we sold our other company. So the Doing It Right This Time can sound like a bit of an arrogant statement because we've already registered our next company. It's called DIRTT, Doing It Perfect This Time, because we haven't done it all right this time. So in a lot of things I'm going to talk about, don't be shooting the messenger. All I'm doing is, regurgitating and articulating things that we learned in the marketplace. That's all I do, is I travel around in this technology world. It's still a face-to-face business. And one of the things that we really are proud of in our company is that we want to use the brains of the entire world, as many people, in coming up with our ideas, as opposed to thinking that, that narcissistic idea that we can come up with something that's totally innovative and that nobody else has anything to contribute. The concept of modularity, I better turn my clock on here just a second. The concept of modularity it's been around since 1905. You could buy a kit home from Sears for $500 back in 1905. Modularity, that term and what we see there really is sort of been the holy grail for everything that we do. The problem is it's never really worked. Just because it's built off-site and brought on-site doesn't mean that you're going to get the solution that meets the design criteria, that meets the cost criteria. Certainly doesn't meet the individual creativity that people want. And when we look, I'll be talking about our residences and our homes, and my God, every house that we see go up in North America, they're going to be our future ghettos. We'll be talking about, when we talk about our residential, we'll be saying, let's build a home that our grandchildren can live in, as opposed to the homes that we build here that barely are enough for the first month's mortgage payment, and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime just to operate. So it's really going to be about behaviors and ideas that we're going to talk about, not much less products. And we're really going to emphasize, oops, it's already dying. We're going to talk about technology too. Okay, so, the thing that I find amazing is that, well, we might as well get right to it. LEED is such a mediocre standard, for an environmental performance. When our goal is to recycle it because it's no good anymore, that's planned failure. In fact, it's hardly even a viable solution when you're looking at what we're trying to do. The goal that we're looking for is sustainability, not being able to regurgitate something or having edible carpet or us using materials that are environmentally more friendly. That's going after the feathers. What we're talking about is going after the chicken here. And we have to distinguish between custom prefab as opposed to prefab. You know, normal prefab, you get what that manufacturer wants to make for you. Custom prefab, rather, means that you're going to make for the client what they need in response to what they need. In the past, of course, that's cost a lot more money. The results have certainly been questionable. The lead times have been way out there. And the bottom line is that you're not left with anything that's sustainable over time. Competitiveness. The thing that's amazing is there's this perception that if it's custom, it costs more money. And why not? You take a look at office furniture industry. If they have a credenza that's 72 inches long and it's $2,000, and you want to buy one that's 70 inches long, it should be less money, shouldn't it? But that's not true. It's double or triple. It also takes 4 or 5 weeks to get it, you know, get the price on, and then the results get interesting. And the truth is, it does cost more money with conventional software because of the engineering time that's required, running the CNC programs, the bill of materials. All of those things make custom a very cumbersome process. We prefer to use the word custom as the first 6 letters of the word customer, in that we're going to respond to what the needs of the client are. And then, of course, we're making the statement, in our company, for instance, we're in the 21st century. And it's worse than being married out there. You can't get a higher price. You have to be able to do it for a lower price or a better price. You have to deliver top quality. You have to deliver it quicker. And it has to be sustainable. If you think you're going to get price increases in the 21st century, you're not going to be competitive in the 21st century. You have to equalize in other ways. And it isn't by beating the heck out of your workers or this strategic, you know, like the accountants like to use this strategy of outsourcing and that, and all that does is make the process more cumbersome. It's how we use technology and how we apply it and the benefits it can give to our clients. And then, of course, safety. You know, we look at, you know, construction still is the most dangerous industry in the whole world. There's still people getting killed on job sites today. And then we look at the long-term hazards of it. We just discussed a few of those points. Let's see now. 1931. You've got one more trick to go to get it there. Built in 1931, and they built it in 13 months. It's really the last building that was built on time or on budget. Well, no, but when you look at it, when you really look at it, people say, well, we did it on time and we did it on budget. Well, that's great if you get to define what the budget is and you get to define the time. You know, when we see it taking, we're doing a job here in Vancouver, I'm watching this pretty basic building. It's taken 3 years to build. You know, hardly any facsimile of what you're looking at here. The fact is that we're accepting mediocrity here. We're not seeing any improvement, and the construction industry is totally contrary to the rest of the world. Look at technology. It gets faster and better every single year, and it costs less money every year. Efficiency seen in factories out there far better than they were 10 years ago. It isn't 5 years ago that everybody said that manufacturing is dead in North America. Well, look, we used to buy at least 50% of what we used to buy in China, we're buying here in North America now because we've learned some lessons and we're starting to get efficient in our manufacturing processes here in North America. We're finding ways to do more with less people, deliver better quality for a much better price. You know, the process that we have in construction keeps getting more and more and more. Right here in Vancouver, in this market here, I promise you, you'll see construction double here in the next 2 years. Where I'm coming from, Calgary, which is next to New York, and already the most expensive market in North America, except for New York, we're going to double up in the next 12 months. So that's one of the reasons that clients are very reluctant to build new buildings. They much rather use spaces that may not be as fortunate and find ways of dealing with those spaces, and I'll be talking to you about that today. But really, not much improvement in the construction process. So how do we do it right now? Our plan is to compete, not compete. The good news for the contractors is they got a lot of business coming up. And their job is going to be a lot more challenging than it was in the past. For every 4 tradesmen that retires, there's only 1 new one that comes in. And that new one doesn't have that 30 or 40 years of experience. So all of a sudden, like for instance, one of the things at DIRTT, we're not very apt to hire from a university. we're probably going to hire from a technical school, from SAIT or NAIT or something like that, where they've got skills in project management, where they have skills in computer programming or in working with various types of engineering systems and that, but not a university graduate with their Bachelor of Arts, or certainly not with their MBA or a Bachelor of Science degree. We're looking for a different type of people. The general contractor will be there. So what we do is we work in that process, and just like other companies, we have another company here today, the folks from Vitrum are here today, and they supply glass into the construction industry. They don't compete. They actually work together with the construction industry. So do we. So anybody that thinks that you're going to change the darn construction industry, you can forget it. It's not going to happen. But what you can do is you can bring efficiency to that industry that they do not have right now as it relates to time and quality. What you can do is that you can bring a much more cost competitive situation into play for the construction industry and take a lot of that trade work. And when I say trade work, we're not taking work away from the trades. It's those people that are installing. We're just redefining their trade in the way that they work in a much safer environment. They don't have to have garbage all around them. So we're not taking work away from anybody. We're just redefining that trade and what we're doing. So we're competing, not competing. So now when we look at, you know, a typical drywall job, and some of our clients call it sheetrock, we call it shitrock. Because what it is, you know, is one of the most destructive materials, and it's been around since the 1930s. They're still using it today. And when you look at this process and, you know, whether, you know, drywall dust is a carcinogen or not, that's, you know, a very subjective statement. Some people say it is. But the point is that whole darn process of building, when you see something like this, you can see what a destructive process it is and how much waste. For every square foot of drywall, you know, there's a pound of it that goes into waste for the cutouts and the doors and all that type. Very, very wasteful process. And what we're doing, not to mention the garbage that goes and the bin removal and the hydrocarbon expenditure and all the trades that have to deal that. And when you compare a piece of drywall, I always say if the drywall, a piece of drywall is certainly cheaper than one of our partitions, but that's like comparing a piece of paper to an iPad. This thing, if it's going to be, you know, the ugliest thing out there and the most environmentally damaging thing out there and have zero sustainability or long-term value for the client or for the people that are working in that environment, then it damn well better be the cheapest. And we're going to find out not only is it going to have all those bad things, it's going to be more money than the systems that are manufactured on a modular basis or a custom modular basis. So here, this is a recycling plant in Calgary. Usually by about the first week of a 4-week month, they won't take any more because they just can't take it. So it goes to the garbage. It goes into the landfill devices. So this thing is something that's in the ether. It's some utopian statement that is absolutely not real. And then what's the cost of the environment of recycling all this darn stuff? You know, we're just looking at one basic thing of the equation. We're not taking it top to bottom. Recycling is fundamentally a process for failure. You know, when you build a job, and here, wake up Vancouver, please. When I see these jobs go with glass fronts and drywall on the sides, and many of you in this room are complicit in that process, you know, that's what you're committing to. And that's what you're showing. You're knowingly doing that. And it's even worse when you get into education and healthcare and those type of environments. Healthcare, think about what you're doing to the environment when you do that. And you look at the amount of waste that it's creating. Yes, you know, you can't go out and cheat on your wife 50 times and do one thing right and think, unless you're LEED, then you can be LEED Platinum for the one good thing that you do. But the point is that, and think that you're not going to be punished, you know, for doing it. So when this process that we're talking about retrofitting old spaces or old buildings, you're darn right, you know what, we're going to pay that price. But to knowingly put that process into play again and again and again is what I would call environmentally criminal. And there it is, 25% of all landfill is construction waste. And I think you still take it out to Lillooet, or where do you take all your landfill here? It doesn't go anywhere close to here, that's for darn sure.
Cache Creek.
Where?
Cache Creek.
Cache Creek, is that next door here, or where is it? No, think what it costs for your waste that you're creating in this environment. And then sprawl. I'm pretty sure this is Calgary, okay? It doesn't matter because it's the definition of sprawl. It's unbelievable. As you know, we have no downtown there, and most of downtown's ugly anyway. You wouldn't want to be there. And that's in spite of having this beautiful Bow River and Elmo River, and we've managed to spoil it. Because we're afraid to use vertical space down there. We don't have a downtown, so we spread everything all over the darn place. And if we got an old building, we tear it down. We don't use it, we don't keep it. Another example is Phoenix, Arizona. For any of you that have been in Phoenix, it's unbelievable. I've been going there for 40 years, and if I want to go to the football game from Scottsdale, I got a 1-hour drive that I got to go all the way up to Scottsdale because they made this stupid rule in the beginning that you weren't allowed to go any higher than 6 stories in those jurisdictions. So now they're suffering, you know, the consequences. And who's suffering the most is the environment. You are, because you're paying a fortune for your fuel, it's just going to be more and more. They're polluting that valley. If the wind doesn't go, you've got smog in that valley. By the way, you have the same in Vancouver here. If you don't, you guys need the wind to save you, and so do we in Calgary, same thing. But that comes from urban sprawl. If we don't look at better ways of creating, you know, our spaces and building our spaces. Look at Europe. Ask yourself the question, why aren't the buildings big there? Why aren't their homes big there? 3 reasons. Number 1, the bigger it is, the more it costs. You know. Number 2 is that they didn't have the space in the first place. They did not have the space, so they couldn't build big if they wanted to. And the third thing, and they actually put this into play, and that's when Europe has it all over North America. We don't regard architecture and design in Europe as some expensive girlfriend. We see the value of design. We don't let anything get built over there unless it's designed thoroughly and it's investigated, because the architect and the designer takes full responsibility. They're the only ones that can pull the permit. And not only do they have to be able to demonstrate, you know, that it's going to be something that will fit in the environment, they got to show the environmental impact of that facility. And they got to be able to demonstrate that that facility is going to last for 100 years, not for the 1 or 2 weeks that we plan for here in North America. Completely different behaviors. Can you imagine if we had started using that thought process in places like Calgary or Arizona, how much better off we would be? Or let's take, I was in Dubai at the Arab Health Show here about 4 months ago. It's amazing how they strive to keep everything in this compact area, you know, because they learned by the mistakes that we made here in North America. Even in China, the way they're building, they have these compact areas. From an environmental point of view, as polluted as those places are, they're still way more environmentally friendly than the way we built our cities here. That's for darn sure, the way you look at it. And also the size of our homes. You know, why do we need, and by the way, I'm not sitting up here in the holy pulpit and say I'm a great guy, because I've got an 8,500 square foot house in Kelowna and one that's 6,500 square feet in Calgary, and had one that was 18,000 square feet, so believe you me, I've been a total environmental criminal in the past, and will somehow try to make amends in the next few years before I shuffle off as more of a plane. But nevertheless, why do we have to have a big house? And you know, a young couple, if they've got a 1,500 square foot house and it's designed properly, you know, in the right way, and then they have no kids, they have 1 kid, you add 1 room, you have 2 kids, you add 2 rooms, or you get to be like us, empty nesters, you take them out. Now we talk about building sustainable homes, and homes that cost less than, we have homes in Calgary right now that just a 2,000 square foot house costs almost $400 a month in the wintertime to operate, compared to a home that if it was built properly, you could operate it for less than $50 a month. There's no excuse in Vancouver or Calgary for having air conditioning. Come on. That's just piss poor design. That's what that is. You know, you don't have to do anything magic to avoid that kind of cost and those unnecessary frills when we can darn well do it with good design. So the value of design is so important in what you're doing. No one wants to sustain ugly. What is the perception? And I'll admit it, in our old company, you know what, we made that company go from $52 million to $300 million, and we never made it, you know, because we made something that moved. We made it because we could customize it. That was the reason, and we could deliver it very quickly. And by the way, in those days, we could get away with charging a fortune for it. You know, so we had a great business, but we were really, you know, doing it in a way, it was nothing that I would ever use in my home or you would want to use in your home. It was completely different, the approach to it. And if you take a look at here, the perception of modularity, and there's a lot of perception that's true, right? Modularity, most of it is but ugly. You know, that's a modular system. You know, it moves, but it's ugly. It's not something you would prescribe for yourself or for your clients, especially in this new environment where companies today are looking to create completely different environments than they were in the past. And it's not contemplating the agility of the space as far as moving the walls around. It's the agility of the space and repurposing it for their technology, future technologies, for repurposing it for work styles, for repurposing it for the culture of the company. Until you can be something in the outer market, you have to behave internally for your own people that way. I'm always adamant when you see companies that project, and I won't use any names, but there's some big, we have a couple of very large clients that everybody talks about the great culture they have. Well, you haven't been inside the bowels of those organizations. There's one that's down there in the Silicon Valley. You know, you've got these, 25 and 30-year-old kids that don't brush their teeth, they don't comb their hair, they don't wash their clothes, they stink, and they make $200,000 a year. It's Haight-Ashbury all over again. No, but it's an indictment on their society, because when you really look at what their environment, they've got some neat restaurants and our cafeterias and reception areas, and those type of things, and they've got bicycles you get to ride around the campus and all that. But when you get into the bowels of it, it's pedestrian. It's totally pedestrian. And that's not what will work. I'm going to show you other things that you can do and where the opportunities for design are and what will really work. And by the way, those companies today, they realize that they're making a mistake and they need to look at a different way of doing it. They're not going to rest with it because they realize that that model is failing miserably for them. This moves. You know what I mean? So what's wrong with that? I mean, there it is. It moves. That's, we say that it's not about movability, it's about repurposing. To buy something because it moves is complete stupidity. If it doesn't meet the design criteria, if it doesn't meet the cost criteria, if it doesn't, enhance the speed of the job, if that you don't see that type of thing, and you aren't left with something that's sustainable, you completely failed in the quest. So when we get compared, or I see systems that are, standardized systems compared against, a more comprehensive solution, it just makes no darn sense. And that's kind of the way that we feel about it. We didn't come into this business to duplicate or be a better thing that could move faster or come apart easier than some other product. We come across with a completely different solution. This was our old company, and this was the factory, and one of the most embarrassing, the factory just got bought by a Vancouver family, the Hungerford family just bought this factory here. And this is what shows, this is a syndrome of North American hubris, certainly my own and Wall Streets and Bay Streets, because they want us to build biggest single structure in Western Canada. And when it didn't work out for this company that bought our old company, you had a building here that's sitting totally empty. Talk about embarrassing. And absolutely no use for it. What do you do with that? It can't work as a warehouse because it's a manufacturing space. So too big a distance. There's no doors on the sides. Who needs 767,000 square feet? The only thing that was really quite nice is the cafeteria, that you should turn that into a nightclub or something like that, or the offices at the front, but that was it, a totally dysfunctional building. Thank God they bought it, and now they're going to spend millions of dollars in creating doors on the sides and totally repurposing that building so it can actually become functional, as opposed to the cheapest thing probably would have been to put that building on the ground. What a crime. And that building was built in 1995, and it was a good building, but it's sure not something that makes sense. You don't need factories like that. And by the way, we're not the only company that thinks that. In North America, the companies that are surviving and doing well are the ones that have found ways to do it in much less space, much more efficient space, much closer to the customers. Nothing about this stupid 500-mile rule. Who cares about that? You should care about where you're closest to your customers, closest to your suppliers, where you can get the best workforce. You can imagine what we're up against being in Calgary. We don't have those people anymore. A lot of them are retired, they're just not there, and you have the same thing here in Vancouver. So we have to start thinking about our logic of how we use our space, because that's the first environmental statement, the footprint. How much space do we use? That's in lockstep with the carbon footprint, and you can't get around it. And that's one of the things, and this is an example of the bad behaviors that we've had in the past. And in the past, like I said, modularity and design have been in conflict. What are most modular systems like? They're really tall furniture, aren't they? You've got some panels, and then you have a post and you turn a corner, then you have another post and you turn a corner, and it looks exactly like a tall furniture system. Even the furniture industry doesn't sell that anymore. They don't sell panel dividers anymore. They sell tables and these ambient seating areas and interactive areas. So why would you be using a partition system that looks like tall furniture or anything like that? You need something that A, gives you design freedom and allows you to do the things in the environment, you know, that a contractor, he's going to say no to because it's going to cost way too much money or take too long. That's our standard line. I had my own construction company for 38 and a half years. Just meant we didn't want to do it or didn't know how to do it. But now you get into the manufacturing environment, and I'll show you the type of things that can be done in a manufacturing environment where the price is determined, the quality is determined, and you end up with a sustainable solution. So this video that we're going to run for you right now, this is actually for a university. Where you want to go? Okay.
This is the University of Iowa's new Learning Commons. Since opening, students voted it the coolest place on campus. Open 24 hours, it provides open areas and private collaboration rooms, while offering a convenient gateway to the research library.
It's turned out fantastic. The Learning Commons itself as a whole has been completely successful, better than we even imagined.
We were trying to create a showcase space for campus, a space that really reflected the emphasis we want to place on academic wellness.
I noticed that people are actually using the space. People are in the library is packed.
The University of Iowa is still recovering from the building damage in the devastating 2008 flood. Space on campus is at a premium. This Learning Commons is a result of repurposing an administration area that came with its own set of challenges.
We have a structural steel support column every 9 feet in one direction and every 13 feet in another direction, so making changes to this grand old building is sometimes a bit of a problem.
If you would have asked me before this process started that we were going to use a modular wall design to make these study rooms, I would have said it isn't possible because they're very standardized and rigid and very specific to maybe a corporate office environment with regular sized spaces. But now that I've done this, obviously everything was custom. I think that's the magic of this system, that there's nothing standard.
By combining the integration of computers and screens with walls that allow for simply writing out ideas, the Learning Commons is a powerful tool to assist these 21st century students.
This gets me in the library. This gets me to utilize technology, and having these rooms is just a huge advantage for me and all the other students here at Iowa. And we didn't know what exact technology was going to go inside of that wall system until about 6 months before they installed it. So to have a system that could come apart into pieces and be easily interchangeable is invaluable.
Being able to rewire behind the scenes without having to tear open a drywall or to have to hire a sheetrock contractor to come in and patch it and then to have a painter come in to be able to pop those panels off, move things around has been helpful for us.
It really does need to be a flexible space because in 5 years, you know, this technology is new and emerging right now, but in 5 years it might not be. So when we're flexible like that, we can really give the students what they need.
You know, today the Learning Commons is a stop on every admissions tour, and you can see how popular it is with the students. I'm sure that as parents, alums, other supporters come through, they're just amazed at what we've been able to do in terms of this transformation.
So normally, the architect that was talking there, if architects and designers were making the decisions like they were 10 years ago, we'd already be 3 times as large a company. No question about it. Sadly, you are not. You know what I mean? We got these things called accountants, procurement agency, the contractor, everybody. There's so many different decision makers in the process now because it's very difficult to affect the plan. In this particular one, the person that should have been our greatest friend was our biggest enemy, and that was that architect there. You know, because he had this vision, which is what you saw there, and he was darn sure, because he'd had experience, that there was no way that he was going to get the quality or the type of look that he wanted for that space. While we ended up in this case here, we were half the price of conventional construction, and we could deliver it in half the time and get it installed in half the time we could with conventional construction. And we left them with a totally sustainable space. But there's 2 things that I think that you can take out of that video there. Is one, that people said they want to be in that space. They actually want to come into there. How many work offices can you say that someone actually likes coming to the environment that they're in? I think that's a pretty resounding lesson. But the second is technology. How they work with the technology. I'm looking at this front view projection. My God, this is ridiculous. You know, this is like 1980s. The quality of the imagery that you're getting, the whole darn thing, it's ridiculous. Where a $900 screen hooked up, you know, even by Bluetooth, we could give you a much better presentation that we have here. But they don't understand. They'd rather spend twice as much for that projector than one of those screens there. At the end of the day, it's how the technology works. There isn't a single organization, whether it's healthcare, education, corporate, whatever it is, it's all about how they work with their technology. That's where they get their freedom, that's where they get their method of operation, the way that they work, especially the young people. And the magic is gone in technology now. You know, we got the furniture industry, they come up with this incredible innovation that, you know, you can sit at this table and you can use 6 different users you want, and you just push a button and you get to be the user and it shows up on the screen. That's just amazing. You get to pay $16,000 for it. Whereas I can send any one of our 21 or 22-year-old kids that work for us to Best Buy for $350 and they'll do the same damn thing and stick it under your kitchen table if you want to. Technology doesn't cost money anymore. It makes you money. And one thing is for sure, it's going to get better and better over time. So you better have something where you can future-proof the space. That was the whole key for us in this particular project, and that was the challenge. But back to what we can do with custom modular and using technology, just take a look at the type of things that are available to us here. You know, this is a play on Taliesin's West, Frank Lloyd Wright, his space there. When you look at it, then this was actually the cabaret down for those of you that have been to Taliesin's West, and shows them how the way he worked with acoustics and the way he worked with the benching systems. The benching systems are actually, you can go to the next slide there. Frank Lloyd Wright was quite a ladies' man. He would practice by putting his arm around his current girlfriend, you know, and then when he would fold his legs over, what that did is disoriented him from the front of the room, so he had all the benching on angles so that you would be aimed in the right direction. It's the truth, you know, that's all. And then he got rid of all the conventional paradigms of acoustics that you needed to have all these acoustic environments, and they did it with using angles and that and getting incredible acoustic performance, and I'll show you something else. But that's all done, that's what kind of thing that's possible in custom modular. Something like that will install in a few days. Can you imagine asking a general contractor to build that for you? And the technology is totally sustainable in there. And this was just again showing how they were played. I will tell you, not paying attention to details, if you've got any sense as a designer, it's kind of unfortunate that these buttons didn't line up with the reveals on the columns, you know, and the architect complained about it and he said, well, that's what your drawings show there, you know what I mean, but they should have lined up with the reveals. Something that bugs me, but that's all. But go ahead. And this is what the kind of thing that LinkedIn does. They create these areas. You can tell that this is done by a more creative designer because there's actually color used. For you architects and designers, you know clients like color. They don't want to see white or beige. You know, quit this bullshit line about timeless design. They want creativity, and they love color. They want color. So let's quit with the white and beige and all that. But take a look at the way they incorporate their technology into the space. And this is another one, again, using a lot of, not only, first of all, they want to protect the technology. You want the technology out of the way and integrate it into the space. But you want to be able to blow and suck. You want to be able to use that technology, but you also want to be able to write on top of it. So it becomes 3 different functions all at the same time. And it's an integrated solution. Go ahead. What? It's just a delay. Okay. And again, these are the type of environments that we're seeing out there. You know, that they're wanting to create these different types of fun, different creative spaces. And you'll notice that none of these are the same. They're all different because they want their own unique culture and environment. And this is all, it's so simple what's behind here. This is just a modular cassette that sits behind there. And it contemplates that right now it's got, I don't know what that is, a 48-inch diagonal screen. Maybe they're going to want a 54-inch diagonal later on. You never know what it is, but everything is modular within the structure itself in accommodation. Oh, I hope there's no AV consultants in the room, because I can tell you a pretty interesting story. We did a foundation down in Kansas City, and I was with the client, and there's 75 rooms that we were doing for the client with integrated technology and this E-beam that costs $600 from Luidia that smart charges $11,000 for a smart board that gets in the way and doesn't do any more than the $600 device. Well, we're going through it with them, and the client is sitting and we're going through all the different screens they want. The architect is there, and the AV consultant is sitting, and I was thinking that there must be some really fancy high-tech room going or something like that. So we go through the whole thing, and the client says, looks over at the AV consultant, and he says, well, what is it that you do? And he said, well, I put this all together. Well, I don't think, that's not what Mr. Smed and the people here at Spaces are saying. It's already done. This is pre-engineered solution. It's already done. What am I paying you for? Well, I'm the one that puts this together. He says, no, I'm asking you what you do. You know why? Because it's all done. Well, it was an embarrassing. He's charging them $36,000 for doing nothing. Young kids today can do it much easier. The AV consultant for sophisticated areas, yes, but not for conventional interactive areas. It's not necessary anymore. And again, I'll just rattle through a bunch of different environments that you can see that look all completely different with custom modular. And this is the one, North America is so reluctant to innovation. We're a Luddite society. That thing that's so ridiculous, especially us Canadians. You know, change, doing something different, oh my God, no. You know, it's embarrassing. Yet we've got over 2,000 beds under contract in Saudi Arabia right now. This particular one is a pediatric unit in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. We did 185 unit, this particular one, 185 units like this in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the whole inside of the hospital in 3.5 months. You try to do that here in North America, take at least 2 or 3 years to do it, guaranteed. And you'd be left with something that, you know, if you want to go in there for mold control, you can't get in there, you've got to tear the drywall. You've got no flexibility. If the technology changes or any of that, you've got to tear it apart. You haven't left sustainability at all. And by the way, of course, this has nothing to do with the darn partition moving. If you notice, the floor is going right up the side. That wall is never going to move. Or if it does, it's not going to make the big mess that a drywall would. So when you take a look at the way they're building over there in Saudi Arabia, it's embarrassing. They're teaching us how to do it. There's hospitals going in Alberta and Saskatchewan right now. While there was 3 hospitals being bid in Saskatchewan here over the last 2 months, 2 of them got a no bid. There was no one to do the work. And they're being told that it's going to take 5 years to build these darn things, or they're building these things in 2.5 years, including the outside structure. And that's people working at 75 cents an hour over there, you know, with a lot of, and they're using American and Canadian architects and designers to do it. But this is what modular construction, custom prefab is all about. You know, whether we're a contractor or a manufacturer, an architect, a designer, an engineer, let's face it, we make our clients feel real stupid. We give them a floor plan, we give them some elevations, a little piece of paint, some carpet, tell them it's going to be $1 million and they're going to love it. No wonder they can't make a decision. They can't make a decision. And we force them to make decisions before they're ready because they really don't know. The non-decision for all of us is the biggest killer. And we don't give them a process with conventional construction that gives them any time. We're forcing them to make these decisions, and then when it's all done, you know, it's way over budget, it took too long, and you know, the end result has been just a painful journey all the way, let alone leaving with something that they don't even like the day they move in. As opposed to using technologies, and by the way, this technology that I'm going to show you right now, you couldn't have done it 15 years ago. The reason we can do it today is because of the gaming world. The gaming industry is way bigger than the movie industry, so all the computer manufacturers were forced to put these chips into our computers that allow us to run this type of technology. We never could have done it otherwise. The technology is able to keep up with the power of the innovation. So what instead they end up getting something where the picture is actually the order, and that you're not working with conventional shop drawings, you're working with gaming technology and the way the speed that you work at. And of course, you can't fall on your sword and throw away your AutoCAD or your Revit or whatever. This works, it's called ICE, and it works in harmony with those tools, and very, very simple to work with. By the way, the ones that can work the very best with them is the ones that have never done AutoCAD or Revit. They work the very best because they're not tethered by the old commands and the old way of working. I look at these young people that have never seen AutoCAD or taken tutorial, and they're amazing how fast they go. I actually like the ones that are the more creative types, you know. This young lady here is quite creative. She worked for us in Calgary. She wasn't an AutoCAD expert, and she was amazing at how she could work in these tools and how these tools work. And of course, you're not limited to whatever it is we make. You can bring in any other model in there, any custom model. You can create any type of environment. All of a sudden, you're communicating in a much, much stronger way than you ever could with conventional drawings, including showing where their darn electrical is, where everything is going. Their millwork, you can do design millwork in a few minutes that would take you several hours, and they actually get a cost and exactly what it's going to look like. Then of course we do what talk about it. This just gets better and better technology all the time, and how you can create the imagery in the space, and it's only going to get better. It's already 10 times as good as it was 8 years ago. Wait till you see it in another 4 or 5 years, and this will just be just standard operating procedure. And when you look at what can be done with that, along with the people from Beecham, their father's company, Starline, they manufacture exterior facades for buildings. Most of the buildings in downtown Vancouver, the residential ones, are done by Starline right out here in Langley. And they're going on to ICE with their, so now when they design the facade of that building, the client's going to get a total vision of what it's going to look like. They're going to know how much it costs, and it's going to have all the manufacturing information in it. It's going to change the whole way of doing it. And for us in this business, where I'm saying we have to be competitive, we have to have that, because nobody's going to pay us. But I'll be talking about the engineering time and the creating the bill of materials and the CNCs. That's where most of the money is spent when it gets to these things. This is a virtual of a hospital room. You get to see what it looks like, and then the next thing you'll see the real thing. I don't think there's much confusion as to what the heck it is, what they were going to get, and the delivery of the process. So this is what works. This is really what happens when you move into a space. You get a wide open space. You can see the ceiling track is already up there, and then you can go ahead and just click right through it, what happens in that space. In this job here, you're talking about around, okay, it doesn't matter, just stop there. About 1,800 linear feet of partitioning that's done in 7 days with 12 people installing, as opposed, can you imagine do that conventional construction? And again, I hope there's no electrical contractors in here, but one thing that makes no sense, 5 years ago we had to buy this company in Kelowna called Spider. We bought them because they had the tribal knowledge and understanding of electrical systems, specifically pre-engineered or modular electrical systems. One of the things they were suffering under is that they couldn't be flexible. You know, they had to supply you 10-foot widths, 15-foot widths, 20-foot widths, whatever. So you were forced into that kind of modularity, and you end up spending a lot of extra materials and buying a lot of extra devices just to give you that flexibility. Well, by adding technology to it, you know, all of a sudden you will see, if you use these systems right, that you will save at least 50% on your electrical costs in electrical installation. And that's not just in the floor. That's in the floor, it's really efficient, but up in the ceilings as well. The really good news about all this, and by the way, we do comparisons. We actually tell them how many hours it would be in conventional construction and how many hours it would be with the modular solution, ours or somebody else's. And we guarantee those hours. And by the way, most of the time the materials, if they really look at the truth, remember when an electrician is working, if he's real good, he can do 4 8-gang boxes in a day, populate the box, do the connections and test the device. That's if they're good. And don't forget the oops pile, because that's their beer money, the leftover copper and all that's going to be there. That's going into their van at the end of the day. In any one of our factories, one person can do 100 8-gang boxes, test them and certify them, and make sure that they work. So again, it's nothing innovative in what we're doing. Pre-engineered modular solutions have been around since the 1980s. Okay. So again, the integration of the technology, that's how you see those screens go in there. There isn't one of us in this room that can't install a screen like that. And of course you also have to deal with the heat load. There's actually fan kits that go in there. Even the LEDs do create some heat, so they actually ventilate up into the plenum so you don't have any danger of them burning out. And again, healthcare, where we have to deal with the water lines and the gas lines and all that, that all goes in first, and then we enclose with the studs, and you're left with the space, as you can see, that you can go in there and retrofit it and repurpose it as you need. And these are just, we're just routed through some different types of looking spaces here. This is Netflix down in Los Angeles and Hollywood. This is BC Ferries. I'm dinner with the building owner tonight in Victoria. I don't know where that is. But again, these are modular solutions. Try building them for double the price or double the time in conventional construction. Different types of environments. Where are we going next? You know, I was telling you about houses. And one thing that we say at DIRTT is we're not inventors, we're innovators. The companies that I admire the very most are like Intel. When you walk into any Intel space, it says right at the very front, innovation is everything. And Frank Lloyd Wright's statement 50 years ago saying that if it needed to be invented, it's already invented, so get over it. Let's innovate on those great ideas. And that's what we do. So we look at the way the Europeans are building their homes. And they're building tens of thousands of homes this way. And they're doing it with these type of structures. And these are homes that can last for 100 years. So you'll see what we're doing is a segue coming into it and how we build this thing here. And we'll be as we build it, you'll notice this is in a warehouse space. And where this idea came from, you can keep going right to the end there, Peter, is that companies are taking these unfortunate spaces and they're using them. Chase Bank took 500,000 square feet in downtown Manhattan, where they're going to use space that you'd never think a bank would go into. But they're feverishly working to not look like a bank, and even for their own people. So they want to create this environment. And this mezzanine structure, all of a sudden, guess what you get to? You get to claw back a whole bunch of space and create, you know, very innovative type of working environments. And we actually can do, no, I'm not going to the house yet. Okay, so then, but most of them will go into 18 clusters of 18, and they'll be organic, and they'll be freestanding within the space. They will be climate controlled, all of that will be totally modular. We're already getting a huge amount of activity in the warehouse spaces alone. With the view to that post and beam construction, see right now that structure, we paid 62 hours of engineering for that. The design, the architect was 15 hours, but the engineering was 62 hours for all the engineering, and then we still had to do all the CNC programs for the machines. It's a fabricator in Kamloops that actually made it for us this time. These are all things that we're paying for in pre-engineered solutions. You eliminate, if we could eliminate that 62 hours, the price of that structure would go from $40,000 down to $20,000. And that's the key, it has to be affordable or it won't work. But that's taken us to the next level where we're talking about in residential. Remember, I'm talking about my environmentally criminal behavior here. Our house is 6,500 square feet. We are now empty nesters. We got to get, the kids are gone. If we didn't have a Great Dane dog, I could probably contemplate something a little bit smaller than this, but this is 2,500 square feet here, right, this house. And there isn't anything curved in this, and this is all going to be done with technology. This house, when you look at it, after the footings, you can see the concrete in that. Just take another one, Peter, there, of what we're doing here. Ignore the colors, they are definitely not the colors, okay? That's for effect only, okay?
Maybe white and gray, I guess.
Believe it or not, I'll tell you what we're going to. We're going to a finish that's from 40 years ago. Remember we used to do all these limed oaks and the lime beams, the white and all that, and sanding it so you see a little bit of the natural wood? That's what we're looking at doing. Why not go back to what's already proven and can work? And we kind of like that color. My wife and I can agree on that one thing, at least, so we can work with it. But when you take a look at these structures and what can be done, and you're in a town here where you're paying sometimes up to $1,000 a square foot, for something that doesn't even look that good. You build something, we get inside it. And here's where it changes. Nothing touches the architecture. It's all going to be freestanding. The bedrooms are going to be freestanding. They're all going to have these lids on it. It's going to be totally organic within that space there. And we're not going to tether to it. We're going to heat and cool the whole thing with high velocity air. You're using a lot of that here in British Columbia now in the old homes, so that it'll all run in the floors. Nothing will be going up to the rafters. You won't be seeing ducts or anything like that. Because it's heavy timber, we don't have to sprinkler it. So it'll be a whole new way of building. But the point is that, this is the kind of thing that now we can take. The first home that we're building as a prototype is 1,600 square feet. It'll be 4 bedrooms and 1,600 square feet. It's designed by an architect. These are the 3 models. If you buy a dirt home, you're going to want to tear yours down. Let's build a home that our grandchildren can live in. And it is designed by a professional. When you people support the very people that are killing you, this Bones guy out of Quebec, and he's saying, your biggest savings, you don't have to hire an architect or a designer, we'll do that for you. Or this Blue Homes down in the United States, I'm going to have a big battle with the Dwell people because they're supporting companies that aren't supporting the professions. In fact, they're competing with you. These Blue Homes, they bought a lady named Michelle Kaufman. She went bankrupt, and they bought her designs, and they're saying you don't have to hire an architect or designer. You know what, we'll price that in our price. What are they saying? What's that statement saying? The statement saying is that they can't afford to customize or give you real custom. You know, they don't have the ability to do it. And second of all, they don't think that the architect or designer has much value. So that's going to be all a whole premise. So that's where we're going, you know, with our business, and why we think this is what, we won't be the only ones doing it. We will be selling the software, we'll be doing it with, you'll see hundreds of companies doing this in the future. And what it really gets down to, the very last thing, is that you could have the type of software that I'm talking to you about today. You could have all of our solutions. You could have all those. And you'd still screw it up if you don't have the culture that believes in what you're doing. You know, this isn't about, you know, what we're doing now. When we come, if clients come to us, they couldn't care less what we're already doing. They want to do they want to know what's coming next. You know, we're talking about sustainable solutions, and they're going to invest a bunch of money in it. They want to know what is it that we're doing, you know, innovating for the future, so that they don't buy something and it becomes obsolete, just like conventional construction did that day. And you know, you have to have a culture, businesses that have a culture that believe in that are prepared to invest for the future all the time. And that's the premise of any of these things being successful. And the last thing, if we talk about the environment, I kind of like this statement here, you know, from an environmental point of view. If you don't think it's important, you know. So. Anyway, thank you very much.
Questions for Mr. Smed? Would anyone like or have any questions? You scared them.
Pardon?
You scared them.
I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just, you know.
What do you do for the ceiling applications? You know,
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. The last thing you want in your bedroom, first of all, you're not allowed to have a drywall ceiling because you can't be a criminal in your office, so you sure can't be in your home. So we're actually developing wood acoustic ceilings, these micro-perf ceilings like you see for the panels. We're going to start to manufacture them. And the only trick, of course, is the suspension system, because we like the idea of accessibility, but we don't want to have a stupid grill exposed. We want to be able to keep everything down to about a 4mm gap. So that's going to be a challenge for us, getting the type of suspension. We may well have to develop our own suspension, but because we want to have agility in the space, but we want to have wood ceilings, and they got to perform as good or better than any of the acoustic ceilings that are out there. That's one system. We're actually going to see a system here tomorrow that's installed. Tomorrow you guys want to look at that ceiling system here in Vancouver? But next week, that's installed. It's a European system that's being installed in a show suite here. So yeah, ceilings are very important in all this. But the structure too, we have a structure already that we have in Calgary. We have what's a lab, not a showroom, not a green room, anything, but a lab, where because we have to be able to pass all the seismic testing, we have to be able to pass all the structural testing and the acoustic testing and all that. And you know, that's fundamental to what we're doing, yeah. But the ceiling systems are definitely a concern for us, and we're working on the solutions. Anything else? All right, well, thank you very much.